Good afternoon, everyone. This is Reverend David Scott coming to you from Fort Worth, Texas. I appreciate you all joining me this afternoon, this morning, and this evening, wherever you are in the world. Um, Welcome to Facebook Live, and we have an amazing guest today. I feel very, very blessed to have this gentleman on my show, Minister Colin Bates. He is going to be coming to us live from the UK, and Colin was one of my tutors when I went over to the Arthur Findlay College a couple of years ago. I've had the privilege of being over there several times, and my last time over there was 2 years ago, and I had this gentleman as my tutor, and I learned so much from him. So I want to go ahead and welcome Colin Bates.
Well, hello there. Wonderful to be
Hello.
with you.
Yes, and I feel very privileged, sir, that you are with me today. So I appreciate you giving me an hour of your time. How are things going over there in the UK?
Everything is going very well, thank you. I've just come back from working for a week at the college, doing the heart and soul of mediumship. And really, everything is going exceedingly well. And how wonderful this is to have an opportunity just to gather together from all the different parts of the world to really just talk and really celebrate the power of the Spirit. So I'm honored to be with you this evening. Really.
Thank you so much, Colin. I really appreciate that. You are one of my most favorite tutors over there. I learned so much from you when I was over there a couple of years ago, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as we move through this next hour. So we're just going to go ahead then and move right on in, okay?
Absolutely.
So where were you born? Where did you grow up? Where do you hail from?
Well, I hail from a very small village called Auchenbury in England, which is about 25 miles down from Cambridge. And so really was very sheltered from the world and only really started to explore the world when I first attended the Arthur Findlay College in about 1989.
Wow. So I guess that would have been your first experience with the college, was as attending as a student. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Attending as a student in 1989.
Wow.
But came into spiritualism at a much earlier age when I was between 16 and 18. Can't remember exactly when it was, but started really very early. My mother, she wanted to go to the local Spiritualist church, and so I went with her. Mm-hmm. And I stayed. Well, we stayed for many years while she was still able to attend. And what was so interesting was I was their first punk rocker.
There's a story we could probably talk about.
There's a real story, yes. I don't think they'd ever seen anything quite like me before. But it was such a welcoming experience to really find the purpose within life at such an early age. And what interested me the most really was the healing.
Right.
And so I studied the healing for the next 10 years and worked within the healing field, and then moved on to the college, as I've said, in 89, 90, and studied there for a number of years as an assistant. So I trained for 4 years as a teacher before I was allowed to teach at the college. And then in the 90s became a full tutor of the college. And really, I've been there ever since.
Wow. So tell me about, Colin, your first experience, mediumistic experience. How old were you? What was that experience like? And how did that, prepare you for this journey that you've been on?
Well, even as a very young child, I was very interested in another world, really. Although I was the youngest of 4 children, and because I was the youngest, I tend to be a little bit more within my own time. And so I'd already really believed in another world and another reality. But when I was about 3 years of age, I contracted meningitis, which was really very serious in those days. Mm-hmm. And I can remember going in and out of consciousness. And I can remember seeing people as I was moving in and out of consciousness. I went on to spend between 6 months and a year in hospital, recovering. And
Wow.
at one point, I was on an iron lung. And so I was actually very, very ill. And you know what is interesting? When I was born, I was also very ill. And so I tended to see things and create things. My mother reminded me years later where I used to take things to the bottom of the garden to feed the people at the bottom of the garden. So as a child, I must have driven them all quite mad. But I always had this sense and this belief within the power, and also within, really within, perhaps the consciousness of not just the spirit, but of the universal power, the creative force. I've always been very strongly devout within that sense of the God force. And even from an early age, I think if I hadn't have moved into the mediumistic, then I think I perhaps would have moved into holy orders in some way
Right.
to serve the people. And I have been ordained as a minister since 2014. So I've always had this belief within the other world, within the sense of the spirit, within, and really within the healing journey itself, because I truly believe all acts of mediumship are not only a divine act, because they touch upon the creative force, but there is also such a tremendous healing element within it. So everything of the medium is really about the healing process. And also, really, as the medium, we are the minister. We're ministering to God's children, however, you perceive that power to be. It is, in fact, your own creative journey, and it's your own individual, personal journey. So how we, understand the power itself, what we have to really begin to embrace more than anything is that we are all created of the one source.
Right.
And that one source is universal and loves all, knows all, and understands all. And so really we are all part of the same power, regardless of colour or creed or race. Really, if I believe if mankind could embrace that simplicity, half the problems of the world would no longer exist.
All right, brother, you just gave me my soul food for the month. Thank you.
Oh, bless you.
We need to get you over here and speak to the United Nations. That's what we need to do. Um, I find it very interesting, when I talk with people, and thank you for sharing your very personal story about your illness as a young child. I find it very interesting that sometimes mediums rise from the ashes from those types of experiences. It's like we have to go through that type of negative experience in order to understand that, that we have been called to be of service to the spirit. And a lot of the students that I work with here in the States, a lot of them have had those kind of experiences, and that's what's put them on this path. I just find that very interesting that sometimes we have to go through hard times in order to understand that we're being called for a higher purpose. And your story is a very good example of that. So I appreciate you sharing that with me and our audience. So you kind of talked a little bit about, because one of my questions for you, and you've already spoken about it, is how you kind of moved into becoming a teacher and a tutor at the college, and becoming a minister, and all of that. But when did you feel like? How long was the process before you felt like you were ready to actually be a working medium and act as a communicator for spirit? What was your development process like for that?
Well, really, I had no intention of either being a teacher or being a communicator of the spirit. I just assumed that I would just stay and continue to work with the healing.
Mm-hmm.
And also, having trained as a nurse in later years was very much part of my working life. But then, after about 10 years of working just solely with the healing, it was as if I started to become more aware of the spirit itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting about you speaking about the experiences of life, because also as well, one thing that we've all experienced is this awakening within some way, this awakening of a desire within ourselves that has brought us into the reality of the spirit. And that was very much part of my journey. And you speak of the phoenix, which is, of course, I always use. And I will always say, like the phoenix from the ashes, we rise again. But in order to rise again, we have to go through that letting go of what has been to embrace what is, to create the future. And so, however that journey has been for each one of us, I truly believe that mediumship itself is a calling. Absolutely. Because it's a soul choice. And I believe that soul choice is created long before you and I are born. It's known within the power, just as the connection with the spirit and with the spirit world is created through this journey. But I believe it's actually already there. So within my church that I attended, the Spiritualist church, we used to run what we call development circles.
Mm-hmm.
So I was invited to sit as part of a group. And I sat with a lady, a beautiful lady called Eileen Brust. I remember her very well. And I sat with her for over 5 years. And in order to sit with her, I used to have to bicycle 5 miles, 5 English miles to get there.
Wow.
I had no transport, and then I had to bike 5 miles back in the dead of night through the country roads. So we sat for years, and then I started to become more aware of the spirit. And then a lady came into my life, a Mrs. Pat Thomas, who is still with us. She's nearly 90, and she still is very much there within the spirit. And then she started to become interested in the college. And then she went to the college. And then as soon as she went to the college, she fetched me to go to the college. So it was as if somebody came into my life to guide my life and then to move me to the opportunity of the college, which
Right.
I hadn't even heard of at that time. So that was really quite remarkable. And then at the college, I met such wonderful people. I was very fortunate. Gordon Higginson, for instance, was still with us. And I had the privilege of studying with him for the last 3 years of his life. We had such notable mediums as Ursula Roberts, who I also knew and studied with, another lady called Ivy Northage, Glyn Edwards, many people. Mavis Patilla, for instance, was
Right.
one of my first teachers at the college. And so I had the privilege of being nurtured by some extraordinary people. And bearing in mind that at this time I had very little in life and I was really struggling to make my way within life. And people were so kind at the college that the college actually offered to pay for my education.
Wow.
So I was very blessed and looked after immensely. And so after several years of studying at the college, I was then asked to be considered to work at the college. You were invited in those days.
Right.
And then, of course, within the college, there was a very strong education system. And so I then went into training and I completed 4 years as an assistant before I took my final examinations to become a tutor. And in the meantime, what I started to do was with the wonderful lady, Mrs. Thomas, who introduced me to the college, we started to do church services together. And so every week I used to go with her when she did her church services, and I would sit beside her on the platform. And then I would just sit there so that I got used to being in front of people because I was very shy. And then she would say to me, "Have you got a message?"
Mm-hmm.
Extraordinary lady, beautiful. And I would say, "Yes, I have a message." So then she would just nurture me to give a message, a contact from the spirit world. And
Right.
then I would do like 2 contacts or perhaps 3 contacts. And then we would work together between the philosophy and between the prayers and between the communication. And in 1 year, we worked 46 weekends out of 52. So every weekend throughout the year, we were doing church services together. So it was such a foundation, you see, of the Spirit and of the ministry of the Spirit for me. And of course, I continue to do church services to this day when I have the opportunity, when I'm not traveling and teaching in the other countries or at the college. I often take church services because really for me the foundation of the Spirit is the devotional. It is the realization of that we really are a part of the divine process.
Yes, it's interesting. You've mentioned Gordon Higginson and Glenn Edwards, and of course I've never met Gordon Higginson, but I've studied about him and who he was and what he was about. And I always urge the students that I tutor in my development circle to go out to YouTube and to look at those videos of Gordon demonstrating not only active mediumship but also his trance mediumship. He was an amazing man. And I will say, too, that I had an opportunity to work under the tutelage of Glenn Edwards back in 2012. And it's funny, you talked about the Phoenix Rising. I had a spiritual assessment with him, and, and he instilled in me, he said, you've had this really, really rough life and rejection, because being a gay man, you get a lot of rejection from your family sometimes. And I had a lot of that growing up. And he said, because you have gone through that, he said, that's why you are where you are now. And that really hit home with me when he told me that, because it kind of told me that that was my journey. I had to go on that journey in order to understand that I was being called to do this. And I found him to be a very wise man. And when he passed back in 2015, I was very saddened by that. I learned a great deal from him. He taught me he took me to that place in the power where my connection takes place. He helped me find
Absolutely.
that, because I remember when I was there and I was under his tutelage, he would have us sit for like 45 minutes a day, twice a day,
Absolutely.
just sitting in that power and building the power. And it just helped me understand where that was for me. And so I feel very, very blessed that I was able to work with him.
Yes, indeed.
You talk about the Arthur Findlay College, and I'm going to try to play this short little video with. Let me throw this up here, and I'm going to go ahead and play this. Hopefully, it will play okay. It's probably going to be a little choppy, but I wanted to kind of throw this up here and show people a little bit about the college. I don't think the video is going to play. Maybe it's going to go ahead and play now. It's such an amazing place. When I came there for the first time, this video is not gonna show, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that down. When I came to the college for the first time, that was in 2010. And I had been working with my mediumship since about 2001. I didn't really feel like I was called to do this until I was an adult, because I feel like that where I was in my life prior to that, I wasn't ready to be of service. I would have used it in a very selfish way. And so I think that I think mediumship calls you when you are ready. Spirit calls you when they think that you are ready. And I feel like that was very much where it was for me. And I just started dabbling in it and trying to understand it. And I was having that awareness of spirit around me and trying to understand what it was about. And what are they trying to do with me? What am I supposed to be doing with this?
But isn't it interesting that when that happens, it's as if people come into your life that just point the way. Something happens in life, or something just comes into life that just points the way. and shows you where you need to be. And I truly believe, you see, that that was meant to be.
Hmm.
That all of this within your life, within your development, has really started before you were born into this life and world.
Right.
And that what you are doing now, which is so admirable, is that you are honoring the soul journey, that you're recognizing within yourself these qualities. And you see, it's a rarity because very few people actually continue to the point where they are able to fully embrace the naturalness of themselves as a medium. So, really, I commend you for that,
Oh, well, thank you.
because it is a rarity. You know, many people are like the butterfly in this life and world, is that they touch upon something and they find it very beautiful, but they never stay long enough to really empower the gift itself, because communication, you see, is just a starting point. Because once you've had that proof, what then? It's got to lead you to much deeper and richer questing within the sense of life. And of course, you see, it's transformative. It's got to be. So it's transformative to life itself, to our own journey and the experiences of our journey. And then it will lead us into really unfolding the deeper aspects of the spirit, such as prophecy, seership,
Hmm.
all of these wonderful gifts which are so much a part of the power, but really within meditation, within the development process, we need to be open absolutely to the experience. And it's not just about being able to give a message, you've got to become the message. I do feel that more and more as time moves forward. And it is an extraordinary journey, an extraordinary journey. And it's one that should fill us with this absolute, not just desire to know it and to understand it, but this excitement of discovery. I do believe that.
Yes, when I think when people first decide that they are going to embrace this gift and go on that journey, I think that people feel that working as a communicator is is what it's really about. And of course I had that same kind of mindset when I stepped into this. But then I came to the college in 2010 for the first time, and my tutor was Brenda Lawrence, who I absolutely adore her. I
Mm-hmm.
think she is an amazing lady and a very gracious lady. And so my first experience at the college was 8 years ago, and building that foundation about understanding how to blend with that power and sit in that power. And that was kind of alien to me when she was speaking about that. But then by the end of that week, I gained a better understanding of what that was and how I'm supposed to be blending with that. And now when I come home, I work a day job. I work in technology during the week, and I'll walk in the house after I come home from work and I'll tell my husband, Paul, I'm like, I got to go sit. I've got to go sit with the spirit.
Mm.
And I'll come in, and that's my sitting time is when I get home from work, because it helps ground me. It helps me get connected. If I'm having a bad day, it will help me move through that and be able to let go of that. And I have found that by sitting in that power on a daily basis, spirit builds that relationship with you, and they will not let you down when you start to work as a communicator. Because
No, never.
there are times when I go for days without giving a message to somebody, or even weeks without giving a message to somebody. But as long as I sit in that power on a daily basis and I spend time with them, and they understand how I work, and I understand how they work with me, then when I get up on a platform or I start to work with somebody, they are there and they do not let me down, and my evidence is good. And I've stressed this to the people that I've tutored, is that you have to sit and build that relationship with them on a daily basis, or you're not going to be able to work as a communicator. And I found that through trial and error because I came back and I was like, I'm not going to sit every day. Why do I have to sit in that energy every day? But then I learned, you know, as I started coming back to the college and working with other tutors like yourself, because I've had the privilege of being over there 5 times now. And it's to me, the most important aspect of your mediumistic journey is to have that daily contact with them and be in that power with them. And I've learned that on my journey. It's been an interesting and lovely experience.
Well, it is the most beautiful experience, but it's a very personal and a very individual one. And I think once we begin to really embrace the fact that you have this extraordinary ability within you, that you are part of the divine expression of creation, and once you begin to embrace that, I believe it actually becomes easier, because then you're no longer doubting or questioning the journey and the process. You're merely embracing it. And absolutely, like any relationship within life, you also have to bring something to it. Communication itself is created through mind to mind, our ability to become aware, but not within the physical senses of being. You see, the physical mind is the power of this life and this world. It is the power that will always tell us that we can't. But the power of the heart and the soul will always tell us that we can. It will always lead us to where we need to be. So in some way, within the development process, what we have to do is to create a time to become more aware, not just of our own needs within mediumship, but also to create the time for the blending with the spirit world, to allow the presence and the power of the spirit to really become part of this journey that is unfolding within us. And that, for me, is the most important. If we can achieve within this journey the realization of the soul power itself and how it interconnects with this divine experience, then actually we achieve something that is extraordinary. Because really, it's the transformation of self that is the greatest feat. And the realization, you see, that people within the spirit world live, that you can't die, that love, like life, is eternal, and that within this journey, we're actually speaking to living people who are as real as you and I, although no longer within the physical sense and the physical life. And really, one of my greatest joy of teaching is to get people to realize that the presence of the power itself resides within the heart and the soul, and that as we create it, that mediumship is not created through the power of the mind, that we're not working with these dreadful lists of what you need to discover. What you're bringing is life. And I tell you something, it's the difference between somebody saying, oh, it's my mother, and oh my God, it's my mum.
Mm-hmm.
And so really bringing realness into the reality of communication, bringing personality, bringing heart. Yes, bringing evidence, because yes, we have to prove what we have. But really, it's the most extraordinary journey. And you see, when you touch the power itself, when you create communication, you're creating a miracle, because it is a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
It's life-changing, it's transformative. But what you have to remember is you are the magic that creates the miracle. That
Right.
there is something within you that is that extraordinary ability to build that wonderful bridge of light between the two worlds, to open the window of the etheric life, so that for that moment of blending, you become this extraordinary expression of life. You become the spirit world. Because really, mediumship is, for me, it's the great becoming. And you see, within that, you create something that is called hope. And you bring hope through your messages, through that divine experience. And you can touch a life that has been seemingly broken beyond repair. And you can see the light come back on in their eyes, because they know that they are still loved. They know that they are not lost, that they still exist.
Right.
And that, for me, you know, you could say, well, it's one of the hardest parts of life is dealing with that aspect. But I believe also through the healing process itself, it is one of the most rewarding, truly. I get very passionate, I'm sorry.
I know. Brother, that's why you're here.
I go
That's
crazy.
why I wanted you to come on here and talk. um, yeah, I about back in October, I did a platform demonstration with another medium that lives in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Brandy Chrisman. She's actually on this live feed right now listening. And she's been to the college just about as many times as I had. And she and I did a platform demonstration together here in Texas back in October. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because you talk about how it touches lives. I brought a message to this lady from her brother. And it amazes me how intelligent the spirit world is and what they will do to get some kind of information over to you, and how they will use something in your subconscious some experience that you had to tell a
Absolutely.
story to someone else. Because I lost my brother when I was 11 years old and he was 15. He was hit by a car. And I remember when I was in that power and I was working with her, not only did I feel my brother there, because my brother generally will come through when I bring a sibling to someone. He will kind of be there as a sign that, yeah, this is a sibling of this person. And I remember I gave her all of the evidence. She was taking everything that I said. And then after the demonstration was over with, she walked up to me and she said, "I want you to know that I have always been skeptical of this." She said, "But because of what you did with me today and the evidence that you were able to bring to me from my brother," she says, "I know now that the soul will go on." And that just jabbed me in the heart, you know? And what I said to myself was, I did my job today. Just with that one woman, I know that I did my job, even though I brought messages to other people.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
beautiful moment when really that comes into being.
yes,
Because I know that a lot of the people that come to see us, be it within a demonstration or sometimes even within the private readings, they're seeking to find something to know really that this continuation of life is so important because it brings the healing, you see. It brings the healing to different situations. And then once that healing has taken place, it may be that you never see them again. Maybe that's all that they need. Or
right.
it may be also that it awakens something within them that seeks to unfold their own natural ability, that they too become the pioneers of the future, the
Yes,
seed bearers, because I always perceive it really as the seed bearers of light, that through our own experience within life, we are able then to bring others into their own experience, that they can then touch the lives of others. And so the light begins to grow. And you have such a heritage of that in America, because my goodness, that's where it all began, really.
right.
That's where the great revelation started in 1848, that really led to this explosion, of interest within the spirit. And, from that, it then moved to England itself and has been here really ever since that time and that moment. But, the message of the spirit is the same today that it's always been, that I still exist, that I continue to exist, that we are part of this universal life and continuance, that then should open up the hearts of mankind into this realization that we are responsible for life, that as we live, as we breathe, we are all a part of each other. And that's really the transformation.
Right.
And what is so interesting is that you go into all these wonderful countries of the world, and the young people are now being born in such a way that they're seeking to find their own answers and their own pathway, that they are honoring the past, but within them there is this sense of needing to find their own spiritual identity. And that, for me, is extraordinary. because it tells us that the world is changing and we have to change along with the world.
Hmm.
We have to embrace the newness of the world. That yes, we honor everything, for in my house there are many mansions, but also as well to honor the individuality, to say you find your way, you find what's right for you, and then you honor it,
Right.
because it's an individual journey. But my goodness, is it an extraordinary one.
It is. It has changed my life so dramatically,
And
and
mine.
how I look at life, and what's important to me and what's not important to me.
Mm.
Um, but if those of you who are just joining, I am talking with Minister Colin Bates. He is coming to us live from the UK. He is a medium and a tutor at the Arthur Findlay College, Spiritualist College in the United Kingdom. I want to ask the audience to go ahead now if you have any questions to start posting those, and then I will throw those up on the screen for Colin to answer. I want to ask you, Colin. You've talked in and out in the last 30 minutes. You've talked about the power of creation. I have to talk about this for a moment, because when I came to the college 2 years ago and worked under your amazing tutelage, you gave a lecture in the sanctuary about the power of creation. And it just about knocked me right out of the chair.
Oh,
I
bless you.
I took so many notes. I was writing just as fast and furious as I could with what you were saying, because it just resonated with me. And I want you to just kind of speak to that a little more in depthly for a few moments, and then we'll start taking some questions from folks, because I found that to be a very foundation piece in my journey going forward.
Yeah.
So if you will just speak
Oh,
about that a little bit.
absolutely. Yes. Well, for me, this is exactly as you say. This is the foundation of everything that we are, because you see, the creative force is the great mystery of the universe, and so it is the power that we are all seeking to understand. It's the very essence of you and I, and it's the power in whom we move and have our very being, really. And at the heart of the creative force is, you will always find the spirit world. And you see, we could not be more a part of it. You see, because it's the spark of everything. It's the energy, it's the driving force of you and I. And really, more and more, it should be a part of our daily knowledge and existence. When I teach mediumship or meditation or sitting in the power, it's about our ability to register and to become one with all that is, to then move into the atmosphere of the spirit within ourselves. You see, the great qualities of creation is love, compassion, understanding, and eternal patience. These are the qualities of the divine mind, the great spirit, if you will, or God, or the God force. And when we focus upon those qualities, when we pray within those qualities, there is this upliftment of light within ourselves. And then you know that the power has heard you. When you find the stillness and the quietness within ourselves, when you move away from the physical mind and become aware of the interior world, when you touch the essence of your own presence, your own spirit, there is such an outpouring of love that is of the creator, that is of the creative force. And you see, this is what a lot of the great spiritual teachers, mediums of old understood, that the power is within you, that the very presence of the creative force is within you,
Mm-hmm.
and that the physical mind is the power of this life and world. But when you go beyond it into what is termed the superconscious mind, then you enter into a time of total experience of the past, of the present, and even of the future, which occasionally opens a window upon that which can be. But at the heart of everything is this love of the Creator, of the creative force. And so, really, in all my teachings, I bring that in because you see, this is not about your ability to become a medium. This is about your ability to become yourself, to embrace the naturalness and the spirit of who you are, because that's the transformation. It is a transformative journey. And I've always had, for me, this belief in the other world, but my own personal belief within the creative power, the creative force that is so much a part of everything. And you see, it surrounds us, it is within us, it is around us. But collectively, sometimes we're not always aware of it. And you spoke earlier about how there has never been a time when the spirit world has not been there. Well, how wonderful, because it's absolutely right. But there's been so many times when I have not. And I think that's so evident of life, that it's
Right.
so important to take time to explore the many powers of life and what creates life itself. And it is the great mystery. There's a wonderful Indian saying, I believe it comes from India, and it is that God breathed out and mankind was born. God breathed in and we started the journey back. So really we're seeking this union, this oneness. And you see, when we speak about the power that knows all, understands and loves all, it is the universal God that is a part of every power. And so this is why, when we work as the medium, we are totally universal within that moment. We are no longer the physical person. We are, in essence, the blank canvas that is waiting to paint the picture of life. The storyteller,
Right.
the storytellers of life within it. But when you work through compassion, you see, you will bring the healing within your words. You will bring the presence of the power, will manifest through you. So often I see a lot of people working with facts and figures, and it's wonderful because it's facts and figures, but it doesn't really bring the presence of who we are.
Right.
So when we work with love and compassion and understanding, you bring a very different type of mediumship into being. And it's not the mediumship of the mind, it's the mediumship of the presence of the power itself. And you see, you never quite know what it is within that moment that you bring something that is transformative, that can be life-changing, really,
Right.
to the journey of another. So what is the creative force? Well, it's the air we breathe. It's the presence of the power itself. But it's also the presence of who we are. Because you see, we are as much a part of that power now as we can ever be. Just as we are a part of the spirit world. It's there, but we are not. So really, perhaps the great unfolding journey of the medium is learning to embrace the naturalness of who we are and the uniqueness of who we are, because no two people will ever perceive it the same or even work in the same way.
Right.
And I'm such a believer in nurturing the individuality of life, of finding your way, of embracing that which is right for you as an individual, and then dancing in the joy of your own light, because that's the ultimate, really, is to
Yes.
embrace it and to become it, but it's as real as you or I.
I know. I've realized, great words of wisdom. Thank you very much. I've realized that as my mediumship develops, and I'm one that believes that this development goes on until we leave this world. We're always striving to have that closer relationship with the spirit world, and as
Absolutely.
as a communicator, to be able to give good evidence and whatnot. We're always striving for that, and I feel like that journey never ends
Well, it
until I leave
won't.
this place.
No, then it will still continue. That's the whole point.
Right.
That it will still continue to evolve. Because you see, that's the relationship with the spirit. We speak of the guides, the helpers, those that walk this journey with us. Well, you see, they have continued to grow within the spirit world and have then earned the right to really support their mediums in the physical life to continue their ministry of the spirit. I used to think that it would be wonderful, you see, because then I can go and sit on a cloud for the next 10,000 years and play a harp, and it'd be rather wonderful. But somehow I don't think it's going to happen. I think I shall. One of my greatest fears is that I shall leave this life and world. I shall go to heaven, and then a kindly man will come up to me and grab me by my heavenly sleeve and say, "Will you come with me, please?" And I'll say, "Yes, of course I will, sir." And then he takes me into a little room and he says, "Will you help these people contact the living?" Can
And
you imagine?
and when we do go to the spirit world, we probably do continue working as a medium just on the other side. You know,
Can
that's
you imagine?
funny. I know it's crazy. Um, so I wanted to, folks, if you have any questions, we have about 15 minutes left. So if you have any questions for Colin, if you will please go ahead and post those on the comments, and we will get to those. Um, I I I know that this is probably as a topic that we could talk for about an hour, but I want you to just briefly talk about trance mediumship, because I feel that it is a very misunderstood form of mediumship. Um, and I want, maybe in a summary way, for you to just kind of speak to that a little bit, to try to help, particularly people in America. I think that people here have a very difficult time understanding what trance mediumship is and how that
Okay.
works.
Okay. Well, this is absolutely wonderful because everything in mediumship is what we call an altered state of consciousness. And trance mediumship is an altered state of consciousness. It's the blending of two minds and the blending of two worlds. And so when we speak of, for instance, the guides, the helpers, the spiritual teachers, the philosophers, the inspirers of the spirit world, they are continually seeking to continue their work and their ministry through their mediums. Now, trance mediumship is really about the ability of a medium to blend in a mind-to-mind way, to allow the presence, the mind, the intelligence of the spirit world to manifest in such a way that not only do we feel the presence of the spirit, but we have the philosophy, the intelligence directly from the spirit world. Many people in America call it channeling, for
Right.
instance, which is absolutely similar within the way. So what it is we have the physical mind of the medium. And certain mediums have this ability to be able to just take aspects of physical mind and move it into a quietness. Now, in our normal daily life, the subtle realms of the psyche or the soul are muted. So if you want to be a bit scientific, we have the beta states of being or mind, which we live in within the physical life and world. We have the beta, the alpha, the theta, and the delta states of being. Now we touch all of the states of being as a natural product of life. So the delta states actually resonate within the sleep state. You have inspiration, meditation, communication, all altered states of consciousness. And true mediumship is a form of entrancement, because you so become the experience that you begin to live the experience as the medium. You know, sometimes when we're communicating with the spirit world, we have such a rapport with the spirit. It's as if you feel as if you are them. I'm sure you've experienced that.
Oh, yes.
And that internally and externally, we have impressions that directly are influenced by the spirit. So perhaps we should call it a state of cooperation, because what we are doing is we are cooperating with this blending of the two worlds, and in particular with those minds of the spirit that bring knowledge, that bring healing, light and renewal into this life and world. So it can actually work in many different ways. For instance, you can have the inspiration of philosophy, of speaking, of writing, of healing, of the creativity, such as within the spirit art, for instance. It's all a form of trance or altered state of consciousness. But one thing which is absolute is that in no way can the spirit world enter the physical body of the medium. It's not possible. Everything of the medium works through what we call the subtle bodies of the etheric system, or the auric field.
Right.
And within the auric field, we have what we call the etheric double. And it is through that that we are energetically linked through the autonomic nervous system. So it is an influence, and the spirit world cannot physically enter the body of the medium. And it is extremely rare for any medium to work within the unconscious state. So there is a partial awareness of the process that is actually taking place, and at any moment within the blending or within a meditation, you can bring yourself back. And this, I feel, is something that people have the strangest ideas, as if the spirit world have entered my body. Well, they can't, because your body is the home of your own spirit. And if your spirit was to leave your body, you would be in the Elysian fields, running your hands through the corn. So no, it is not possible.
Right.
It is a cooperation. And you see, what's happening is that the physical mind and the aspects of mind that are physical begin to relax. And as they relax, there is actually a rising within our consciousness. So the physical mind begins to relax, but then our consciousness rises. So as our consciousness rises, we are moving closer to the source of the power, the spirit, which is why in the thought process as a medium, if you start analyzing or questioning, you lose it, because you become the question, you become the analysis. So the secret is not to question, it's to do. Can you see that?
Yes.
So communication is created through the wishes and the intention of the medium. I invite the spirit to be with me. So I'm creating it from my heart.
Yes.
And then I am allowing this process to influence me in such a way. And I'll tell you something else, just to round it off, really. This connection that you have with the spirit world is made before you were born. And those that inspire us and work with us have been with us since before this journey started. There was an extraordinary medium called J.J. Morse, who was a wonderful automatic writer.
Yes.
And he had this wonderful inspirer called Tenzing Te. And he was asked, did you choose your medium? And he said, no, I chose his mother. So before the child was even born unto this world and life, the spirit world made the contact with the mother to be with the child before he came into existence. Mr. Gordon Higginson, for instance, when his mother was 14, she was told she would give birth to a son who would dedicate his life to the spirit world. So you see, it's not random. It's not, I believe that it's planned, you see. I believe it's there. And that's why, you see, I would trust the spirit world with my life without even questioning. Because this connection that I have with the spirit is a part of me and my journey. And it only rises questions within the minds of others when we start to have these fanciful ideas that also can create. You know, when people become obsessive with something, it can be created, because thought is the living power. It's like negativity. If you really focus on negativity, you create negativity.
Mm-hmm.
If you focus upon fear, you create fear.
Right.
That's when we have ruling by fear. So the spirit world and communication is by divine fact. It is through the power of creation that communication is made possible. So therefore, it is an extraordinary part of mediumship, but it takes years to develop. Really, the trance aspect, the altered states of consciousness, takes years to develop. It does not happen overnight.
Right.
And it's the same with all forms of mediumship, really. It is continually growing. But, you know, always remember, whenever you sit for the spirit, whenever you work with the spirit, invoke the sacredness of your work. You know, so many people come to me and they say, you know, do I need to protect myself? What is this about evil spirits? No, really, it is such a
they ask me the
concern.
same thing. I get the same questions.
And I say to them, I say, well, bless your heart. You have the greatest light of the universe within you. You are surrounded by the love of the universe. Where forever light and love exists, nothing else can dwell. Whatever do you need protecting from?
Right. I think people, Paul and I, my husband and I did a podcast with a very lovely friend named Deanna. She's getting ready to ramp up a podcast and get it published in January. And so we did a podcast with her, and I talked about mediumship on there. And one of the things that I talked about, I feel sometimes people associate fear with mediumship because there's no tangibility to it. They can't control it. They feel like they have to be able to hold on to something or be able to hold it in their hands in order for it to not be a fearful thing. And I think people just have fear associated with something that's not tangible. And therefore, they feel like they got evil around them, you know, that kind of a thing.
Well, I mean, it can be, but you see, evil is actually man-made.
Yes.
And that it's created through the thoughts of, you know, if you look at it over the centuries and you look at how things have been created, you know, you then begin to understand the greater picture of it.
Right.
And you can understand the reason why it was created. But I think we live now in an age where we've now gone beyond that. And we need actually to look at things really in perhaps more of a way that is understood and has the resonance of understanding within it.
Right.
You know.
We are coming up to our hour, but I wanted to ask you, there is a couple of questions here.
Yes, please.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this one up here. You spoke to this, I think, very briefly. So this is from somebody named Ad Jones. Would you say that everyone has such connections with the spirit world? For example, do we all have the propensity to be mediums if one works towards it?
Well, everybody has an ability, intuition, knowing, claircognizance, which is really the gift of this age, is at work within every day and really within every moment. The spirit world lives, it exists within you and I. I think what is the rarity is people devoting themselves to the fullest of unfolding and understanding
Hmm.
how it works within themselves, and not to be frustrated, that to realize that in order to unfold the naturalness of that which is already there, is that you've got to be patient with it. It doesn't happen instantly.
Right. And I
But
think
yes, but everybody has an ability to be able to communicate with the God force and with the spirit. Absolutely.
particularly here in America, everything is instant gratification, you know,
Well,
and people want to have that instant ability to be able to work as a communicator. And in my own journey, I've learned that that just isn't how it works.
no,
I'm still in the process of understanding my mediumship. I there's still parts of it that I struggle with and do not understand. So I'm working towards that, in my own development.
absolutely. And part of it, you see, is the understanding that everything in life is about awareness and perception, and making ourselves aware of the unseen world. Really, in the physical life, we're not aware. So often we can walk down the road, see something, and say to ourselves, "Oh, look, I've never seen that before." Yet you've walked past it 100 times.
Right.
And so, one of the things that you can do to actually make yourself more aware of the spirit is actually to physically make yourself more aware in the physical life. So, you get used to being aware and looking. And one thing that I teach people more than anything is that you need to know how it feels to be you. You need to learn to recognize all of the different facets of your own life, your own energy. Then you learn to recognize when it changes.
Right. I'm a very hyperactive person. I'm just always very energetic and whatnot. And I've learned that in my own mediumship, particularly when I'm working on the platform with a group of people, I get very excited when I get into that power and I'm talking 90 miles a minute and my arms are flinging
Absolutely.
around, and
Hmm.
and it's because that's how I react to that type of energy.
Yeah,
Whereas somebody else that's doing platform, whatever the way that they perceive the energy and work with the energy, they could have a very different reaction to that, you know?
absolutely. Because you see, this is also part of the beauty of it, is that we will all resonate within the power within our own way, and that which inspires one may not necessarily inspire another. But really, one of the things that I teach more than anything is the nurturing of the unfoldment of that which is there,
Right.
and really to never try to create a frustration within it, but to try and follow the love, the compassion, the understanding, and the patience, to really allow that which at times is so spontaneous. Because this is the thing, is that often we will have many spontaneous experiences of the spirit, but when we go to literally create it, it's not so easy.
Right.
So it's finding really perhaps the naturalness of that. But one thing that we can say to our dear friend who's asked the question is, if there is a desire within you to serve the spirit, then the power itself is seeking you. So create the time to meet.
Exactly.
Find that time to find the stillness within yourself, and then just within the silence of the prayer, just really expand that to the spirit and say, "Be with me."
Yes.
All you need to do, not question, accept, experience.
And Colin, I have one more question for you, and then we're gonna wrap it up.
Okay.
Let me throw this up here. You probably have heard this question numerous times. Jennifer Fezio is a former student of mine. Colin, what courses do you recommend at AFC for first-time attendees?
Well, what is very good here is, and I will always say this to people, is that on the Arthur Findlay College website they have a real detailed explanation of all of the weeks and all of the tutors that are upon the week. And what is important for me is the nurturing that goes on, And when we experience the college for the first time, that is always something that remains within our hearts. And on most of the weeks, in fact, nearly all of the weeks, unless they specify that it's for people who have a little bit more experience, they will always have a group that nurtures people who've never been before, who are just starting their pathway. And really, so you're taken step by step through the unfolding process, and that you're not pressurized. You are just really encouraged to unfold. Have a look at the brochure. And then if you're still worried, then email me or Facebook me, and then we have a conversation. It's easy.
Okay. And sir, will you go ahead and tell us what your website is?
Oh, right. Well, really, the Facebook one, I think, Minister Colin Bates, Spiritual Healer. You can find me on Facebook, and I think that really is the one that's the most up to date now. We
Okay.
have colinbates.org, which just gives you an overview of everything. But really, I would go through Facebook and friend the Facebook and the Spiritual Healer, Minister Colin Bates, because it just lists everything that we're doing. And I'm currently going through a series of online courses and online free lectures. And if you go on to, I believe it's Mediumship TV, or look at Alison Gannon, she has all of the details there. And I'm doing free lectures and free teachings, as well as doing, so really very busy.
Yes, you sound very busy.
I am.
All right. Well,
But
thank you.
I love it. So it's my passion, and I am so honored to be able to share my passion and to live my passion. So,
Thank you so much. I appreciate you giving me an hour of your time today to
oh, I'm
talk about
honored.
mediumship, which is also, something that I'm very passionate about. And your words today have totally inspired me, and I hope that they've inspired the audience that's watching.
You see, I remember you when we were together, and I remember the quality of the work that you do, and how wonderful to see a medium who not only works within the presence of the spirit, but brings that quality into life. So I'm extremely proud of you. So keep up the good work, dear
Oh,
one.
thank you so much. That just made my day. You have no idea. Thank you so much for giving me
Oh,
that.
no,
All right.
not
So if
welcome.
you will just stay on for a moment until we end this broadcast, and then you and I can have a little moment to chat here afterwards.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and talk about my next show. On December 27th, I am going to be speaking to television and film actor Ty Olsson. Ty, you may remember him. I think most people know him as Benny the vampire from the CW Supernatural. He was also in War of the Planet of the Apes, where he played a CGI ape. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit. I have befriended him on here, and he has agreed to come on and give us an hour of his time to talk about acting and just life in general. And that is going to be on December 27th at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. That will be 5:30 p.m. Pacific. So that will be with television and film actor Ty Olsson. So hopefully you can join me for that. I appreciate everybody being here and sharing this time with Colin and I. Have a blessed rest of the weekend, and God bless you all. And we will speak very, very soon. Take care.